Um, I'm going to read a line from The Economist's very recent issue. It says Malaysia's banks have yet to see the full brunt of bad loans. Its economy has more debt than any other in Southeast Asia as a proportion of GDP, 170%.
Well, that is their assessment. I don't know where they get their figures. Of course, there are bad loans. But as I said just now, when the share prices recover, those bad loans become good loans again.
Yes.
And also, of course, we have set up this assets management company, and we have now recapitalized the banks, so they are recovering. When they purposely sold down our shares, their intention is to bankrupt all our companies and all our banks. And then they want the IMF to open up this country so that they can come in and pick up the pieces at a very cheap price. But we have resisted that. So they are not happy with us. And they are going to report adversely against us irrespective of what the real situation is like.
So do you then think that when September 99 rolls around, which is the cutoff period, you would have steered Malaysia through the crisis safely, inshallah?
Inshallah, I think we have sufficient funds. If they want to take out the money, then of course they can take out the money. But at the moment, they know that the share market is recovering. A lot of them want to come in. They don't want to go out. But if they want to go out, we can't stop them.
Mm-hmm. But now, in your run-up to the Vision 2020, you had lined up a series of mega projects, and these have been discontinued or to some extent affected or curtailed.
Vision 2020 is not about the mega project. It is about making this country a fully industrialized country with a very high per capita income. The so-called mega projects are just necessities, infrastructures we have to put in, because if we don't, it is going to be very costly to do it later on. For example, when we built the new airport, it cost us 9 billion Malaysian dollars at 250 per US dollar. Well, that is almost slightly less than $4 billion. But now the exchange rate is 380.
Mm-hmm.
So we built that airport for $2 billion. I challenge anybody who can build an airport that size for $2 billion US dollars. So actually we got the airport very cheap. Mm-hmm. The same applies to all the other structures we put up. Had we built after our currency has been devalued, the cost would be horrendous, and we probably wouldn't be able to put up this infrastructure. And without the infrastructure, the country cannot move. These are necessities. They are not something to glorify the country. We had a Commonwealth game. We have a stadium that holds 100,000 people. And during the Commonwealth game, 100,000 people crowded into that stadium, and there were still about 5,000 or 6,000 left outside. Mm-hmm. So they were built because of a need.
But again, this is perceived, at least in some quarters, as cosmetic measures trying to deviate the attention of the common people from the real problems that Malaysia is faced with.
What is the real problem? The common people supported this government. In 1995, we had the biggest ever majority, and all these things were being done. At the same time, the people's per capita income had risen very, very high. When we became independent, the per capita income was 300 US dollars. Before the currency traders knocked us down, the per capita income was 5,000 US dollars. In terms of purchasing power, it was 11,000 US dollars. People were happy, they have money, and they support the government.
Do you think people are still happy, though, with all of this?
Majority of them will still support the government.
But again, one of the principles that is enunciated is that one has to have free market reforms of free market economy to have a democracy. What comments do you have? Do you have
Yes,
both?
we have a free market and we have a democracy, but a free market is never totally free. I mean, even in America, why do you have to supervise Microsoft and tell them not to expand? It's market. It's the market forces that is allowing Microsoft to expand. Leave it alone. But they want to regulate. If they see something threatening them, they regulate. But when we see things threatening us and we try to regulate, and what is threatening us is coming from outside, they say, you are not practicing free market.
So you think that despite the controls and despite these measures that you have put in place, there is indeed a free market economy. Yeah?
There is a free market in this country, but at the same time, we have a need to balance the development of the peoples of different races in this country. If you allow one race to be so rich as to leave the rest behind, there will be a lot of animosity between them, and it will end up in destabilizing the country.
And talking of destabilization, do you think that there is a political crisis here in this country at this time?
There is a political problem. I wouldn't say a political crisis, but when a person who has been removed from the cabinet refuses to accept it and starts urging people to riot and all that, we have a problem. But it's all over. Today, if you go to the towns, there is no riot, there is no instability, everybody is safe. We can go to the shopping complexes and see people are moving around freely, there is no problem.
But that is perceived to be due to the fact that you have the a ban on demonstrations, or you have a Security Act inherited from the British, which is repressive. These are
they keep on repeating that. But if there is a ban on a demonstration, how is it that there are demonstrations which are reported in the Western press? How is it that there are demonstrations?
Yes, but on the other hand, this whole notion of the Internal Security Act, which is considered a sort of an embarrassment for any democratic state.
Well, if the British were here, they would use the Internal Security Act to prevent us from doing anything at all for ourselves. But now that we are free, we are told that we cannot use this Internal Security Act, even if it is in order to prevent race riots, which would destroy our country totally.
How about the judiciary? There is also this perception that the judiciary is tainted and the judiciary is not free.
Of course, they will say the same thing, that our judiciary, being an Asian judiciary, cannot be free. We are a developing country, therefore we cannot allow for proper justice, rule of law and all that. This is this arrogant perception that Asians and developing countries just cannot be straight. Here we are having a trial where the accused person has got 9 lawyers defending him. The court is open. People are there every day. The foreign media was here, but now they have lost interest. But they came here. Amnesty International, of course, wants to be accorded special status. We don't have any special status in the courts for foreign observers. They want to observe, they can, like anybody else. And yet, of course, they will say that our judiciary is biased when this government's party was ruled as illegal by the same courts, when ministers in my government have been sentenced to death, when other ministers have been put in jail Now, how do you account for a judiciary that is controlled by the government if government ministers are charged and thrown into jail?
So you do not what you are saying is that the judiciary, as it is working out in the case of Dr. Anwar's trial, is being fair and not taking sides with the government's case?
The judiciary makes its own decision. We don't interfere. Once it goes to the court, we don't interfere. In fact, I'm not even allowed to talk about the case because the court has an injunction against discussion on the case until the trial is over.
Yes.
So I can't even talk, I can't even defend myself when people make accusations against me.
Well, one of the accusations that there is always, I mean, more recently surfacing is the very authoritarian and autocratic rule, if I may say so. How do you see this? I mean, this is a charge that is being leveled all the time.
Yes, of course. But I'm elected. I'm not self-appointed. And see, every 5 years I have to stand for election. I have lost elections. Many of my colleagues have lost elections. So how can we be autocratic when we have to pander to the wishes of the people? If we don't satisfy them, they won't vote for us again.
Is there, I mean, talking of Dr. Anwar, although you're not, the case is on and I don't want to put you in that position, but seeing that you have had a long relationship with him and he has been your protege, you have brought him up, you have given him positions of responsibility, and he is, it's not that there is a falling out, but what really is bothersome to all Muslims and others is the quality of charges that he is faced with.
Well, it so happens to be the charges. We have no say in framing the charges. But as far as I am concerned, if I find a person is no longer suitable to become a leader in this country, it is my duty to remove a leader. And then the rest of it is the charges that he has to face in the court, and it is for the courts to decide. Lots of people think that we fabricate these charges. Well, people can think what they like. The courts have got its own mind. The courts will decide.
We'll take a break here, Mr. Prime Minister. Just